Hey everyone, welcome back to Christians for Revival. I have a program today that's going to either frighten the hell out of you or I don't know what will. You know, they've been talking about AI, they've been talking about technology, and we're watching all these robots walking around and doing all these things. And Elon Musk himself, AI could be the destruction of everything. But they've taken it to another step. And I was watching a program on Truth News, and it's going to literally frighten you to death. So let's get into it right now. If you haven't already, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you like content like this. But I am definitely worried and scared because if they've done this, what else could they do? Now, before I get into the actual information I want to talk to you about, if any of you have seen this very, very old, cheap movie, it was called Saturn III. And what it talked about is they bring a robot in that's called the Demigod series, which should have been an alert already because of what it was and the way they were talking about it. But what they did is they created they took human cells and created a brain. And then they were able to program it and use it for their own purposes. And it used direct connection to the brain that was already happening. Well, we're going to be talking about that in great detail. But this Demigod series, of course, once it was direct connected and the way it was programmed, it became whatever you made it to be. And here's an example of them loading the brain back onto the robot. And it's all grown from cells. Well, let's talk about that in some great detail. Now, what you're going to be watching now is some interviews. We're at a trade show where they were talking about growing human tissue, brain tissue in actuality. It's on Truth News, and I'll leave you the link where you can find this. So we're going to be commenting on this, and we'll kind of watch the information, and you'll see what they're talking about. But they're going to talk about what it was, and then we're going to watch the actual interview with how they're doing this, and let's talk about how far they've gone and how scary this is going to be.
Yeah, it's like a map of neurons.
Okay. Who are you talking to in the interview?
So he's one of the he's one of the technicians. They had a team of the technicians. The chief technology officer was there. So he's actually physically working on building these devices. And so he was able to go into all the technical details and tell us about it. I tried to get him to speculate on where it's going.
So, Paul, what's the name of the company?
The company is called Cortical Labs.
Cortical Labs. All right. I haven't seen this interview. I want to see it. Let's watch. Here's Paul Benson talking to a technician at Cortical Labs.
All right, so Paul and Eric are here. We're with Jackson from Cortical Labs. We're going to be talking about the world's first biological computer. Jackson, tell us all about it.
Yeah, right. So biological computing is basically doing computation using living neurons. So we can grow these neurons from a stem cell source, which can be derived from either a blood donation or a skin draw. And so we can grow about 500,000 to a million of these neurons on top of what's called a microelectrode array. And that lets us read and write information to these networks in order to get them to perform tasks.
And what prompted this type of technology? What prompted this idea to be here today and to produce a system like this?
Yeah, so I mean, we saw the trends in AI at the moment, and we saw the downsides, right? They're consuming vast amounts of power, and they require an insane amount of data in order to train. But the human brain, and brains in general, don't require that, right? The human mind is probably one of the most sophisticated computers that we know of, and consumes about 10 to 15 watts, and is able to do language processing, vision, motor control, all of these really complicated things. And it's because of these natural abilities that we're looking to tap into. Even not at the scale of a human brain, even if you take a small insect, which is roughly the same level of neurons that we have, they're able to do really sophisticated processing. So with this device, we have this input-output capability in order to train these biological networks to perform these goal-directed tasks. And we're looking to tap into this natural ability in order for them to learn and grow.
You mentioned a blood draw. Just real quick before we get to a little demonstration here. You mentioned a blood draw. Who? Are you saying that I can take you have a blood draw right now? Is it a living person? What is a blood draw coming from?
Yeah, so from a willing donor. So actually we have Hon, who's our CEO, is one donator, and a few others. Right. So once you draw the blood, you can convert that into stem cells, and you just have to do that once. Right. And so once you have a source of stem cells, the really cool thing about those is that they can self-replicate. Right. And so once they're at the stem cell stage, you can differentiate them into different types of neurons. And so this actually opens up some really cool applications in the personalized medicine space. Because you have this link between the grown neurons and the source, they share the same physiology, right? So you can actually start to test different drug compounds in a personalized medicine aspect on not a digital twin, but an actual biological twin of the donor. Because you now have a system that is performing what we call a cognitive task. It's got a learned behavior. You can see how that behavior changes in the presence of medications and drugs. And so I think that's going to be an early application of these devices in the personalized medicine space.
Wow. Amazing.
All right, so when we got to see what this is. So walk us through how you guys create the neurons and then what we're looking at here.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the biological computer. And so the neurons are up the top here, in this position up here. And this is basically the electrical interface to the neurons. So this connects to the microelectrode array and lets us read the electrical simulations and also send the information in. That is sent into a little Linux machine that's in the box here, which controls the simulated game world and provides and runs all the simulation, but also networks it over the internet. So we actually have an output from our lab here down in Melbourne, right? So we're live streaming this and we're able to control all of these devices in Melbourne. The rest of this keeps the cells alive outside of the human body or outside of an incubator. So we have a little heater underneath the array, which keeps it at 37 degrees, which is the optimal temperature for these cells to be at. And we also have fresh food in here. So the neurons consume basically glucose water, right? And so we have a reservoir of that in here, which gets moved around by these pumps. But as they consume the glucose, they also output these waste proteins and waste molecules that we need to filter out. And so we have a couple of filters here which do that, and it ends up in the waste reservoir. You also need to control for the oxygen and the CO2. And so we have a little gas mixer up here which balances and measures the correct gas concentrations. So if you really break it down, you can think of this as your lungs, right, which balances the gases. Filters, which is your kidney. Fresh food, which would be your stomach. Waste, which would be your bladder. And then the heart here, which is your pumps that moves everything around. And of course the brain up the top.
So we're really looking at a synthetic, almost like a biological human being in a computer form?
Yeah, so
this is crazy. How'd you guys come up with this?
So it's engineered biology, right? We saw the natural benefits of all of these efficiencies that biological systems were capable of, right? You need a level of complexity out of these neural networks.
Some of you have ever seen the TV series Orville. Sci-fi fiction very similar to Star Trek, where they have a robot that lives on board that was created by a race of people that were suddenly disappeared, and we find out later that they ended up killing all their owners because they felt that they were superior. Typical sci-fi movie. But what's frightening about all of this is that no one is saying, hey, we need to slow down. Because you've got now a group of an organization that is building these modules with human brain cells, and you're connecting it to a mass computer. And you're able to program it and make it think the way you think. Well, how long before it becomes censored? How long before it starts to think and take over and control? Or what we know in Revelations is the mark of the beast. Or a child that is born that has no soul. I don't know if this is what's going on. But I wanted to alert you. Because as a Christian, we know we're in the end times. And technology is just racing and racing and racing. And suddenly we went from, we need to build more power plants, we need to build all this energy to build this supercomputer. And suddenly we don't need that energy anymore. We now can take a human brain cells from blood, grow a human brain in our own way, connected using similar technology with the Neuralink, and now connected directly to computers. How far are we going? Give me your thoughts about this. Are you concerned like I'm concerned? Do you worry about the AI getting too far and too in control? I mean, I think more and more we need to put some restraints and restrictions on the use of human cells, human technology. We know what they did. And if you listen very carefully to what he said, we can now take a person's donor cells, grow this brain, and then see how it reacts to certain drugs. Or how can, using something like an MRI by Fran, you understand what I just said, okay, inject it into these cells and now be able to alter it and make it do what you want it to do. How far will we go? Or how far will you be able to test to create these shots that could be reprogramming human brains? I don't know. So, at any rate, I hope this information has been useful. I'm hoping this alert. I'm going to leave you the link to the actual interview where you can check out True News. It's another organization that kind of brings information to us from Christian sources. Again, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. You can support the channel by buying us a cup of coffee. Anyway, this is Reverend Ken out. I hope this information has been helpful for you, and I hope it didn't scare you as much as it did me. Have a great day.